Yes, guys, we need to find the One Piece. All right? I've been watching anime my whole life, and there is a common theme in anime, in about 80 to 90% of all animes, which is there's some sort of information, some sort of knowledge, some sort of secret that a small group of people know about that they will not share with the masses because they fear that it will change the world, and oftentimes for the better. In my favorite show, One Piece, that piece of knowledge is the One Piece. I think that's what Vegapunk is talking about when he gave his speech. I don't think the One Piece is a treasure. I don't think it's a tangible thing. I think the One Piece is some sort of information that whoever finds it can exert their will on the world. Now, it could be some evil guy, it could be a good guy. In this case, we all want Luffy to get it because we know that he would do something good with it. But I think that's what Vegapunk meant when he mentioned the people who found the One Piece, talking about Roger and his team. And he was like, why didn't these guys do anything with it? I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he was saying. He was saying, these guys found the One Piece. Why didn't they do anything with it? And then Rayleigh's like, oh, don't do that. You're going to ruin the fun. Why would we spoil the fun? So there's definitely there's an information there that Roger and his team chose to do nothing with. And I'm not up to date with the manga. I don't read the manga. I watch the anime. And in the anime, there's now this, not in the anime, sorry, in the manga, there's now this, I see spoilers all the time in it. And I see people talking about God Valley and things are not exactly as they seem, and Roger's not the guy we thought he was, blah, 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 blah. And I think that kind of makes sense. My theory anyway, that Roger and them probably found it and they were like, you know what, this isn't down to us. We're not the guys that's gonna use this properly. And I think Luffy's the guy that's gonna use it properly. But anyway, that's going into the show and my own theories of the show, and that's not really what this video is about. Although we are going to use One Piece and a lot of other animes to illustrate this journey that we're gonna go on. Because, like I said, we need to find the One Piece, bro. This world's too mad. It doesn't make sense that so many people suffer. It just doesn't. In illness, war, poverty, famine, it don't make sense. And that you got, 1% of the world that's probably got more wealth than 60, 70% of the world combined. That's not right. You know what I'm saying? Something's going on there, especially when you got renewable energy. You can just grow your own food on the planet. There's water like for days. The water is never ending. There's space for everybody. So something's fishy here. You know what I mean? And I think the only way to resolve this is to find the One Piece. There's all of this, world peace. Man, if we don't know what's really going on here, then we're never going to be able to achieve world peace or to help anybody, really. And I think that's what we need to do, man. We need to go and find that piece of information. You get me? So we're going to go on a fun journey and try and find it together. Like I said, we're going to use anime and stuff to help put the pieces together, because I feel like in anime, and really and truly in movies and series, I just don't watch movies and series. I literally only watch anime and YouTube videos about people I don't like getting bashed. That's all I do. That's all I watch. That's the only content I take in, really. But I feel like in anime, in cartoons, in movies, in series, there's information that's thrown in there that makes you think, why would this person put this in there? You know what I mean? It can't be for no reason. So we are going to use these things, and we're also going to use, we're also going to use myths, rumors, stories, Chinese whispers, you know what I'm saying? So that might not be the most progressive term, but you know what I mean? He say, she says. We're going to use a lot of that to get to the bottom of this, because stories don't just come out of nowhere. There's always something that's inspired you to create a story. And yeah, we're gonna get to the bottom of this, man. You get me? We're gonna have to chat to the nutters of the flat Earth community. Listen, who knows? They might be right. They might actually be right after all this time. Those guys might actually be right. The Ice Wall Dons, they might be right. Maybe the religious groups are right. You know what I'm saying? Maybe. Maybe none of them are right. Who knows? But for one thing's for sure, all of these massive groups that claim to know something, they definitely do know something. There's some truth in what they're saying. And we might have to just piece it all together. You know what I mean? Maybe the truth is scattered. The same way these guys have to go island to island to find the poneglyphs and get pieces of information off each of these poneglyphs to put it all together. Maybe that's what we gotta do. You know what I mean? So that's what we're gonna do. It's gonna be a long journey, but I think it'll be fun and I think it'll be worth it. You're now watching episode 1, Canon. This is the research arc. You know what I'm saying? Canon, though. Canon. We're gonna have some non-canon episodes as well. But right now you're watching Canon. This is the first episode. This is when Luffy jumps out the barrel. This is me jumping out the barrel. And yeah, man, let's go. And I think the best place to start this with, like I said, it's the research arc. I think the best place to start this one is to really understand the One Piece world for starters. And let's see if we can find some parallels between our world and the One Piece world. I think that's what we're going to do. All right? So, yeah, let's get started. I got a video that I thought was quite interesting. And I think we should watch that. And we can start there. And we'll see where it takes us. Okay, so here you see we got a Grand Line review explaining the One Piece world. Very good video, very informative for anyone that doesn't really understand the One Piece world. We're going to use this to see if we can find some parallels, like I said, between our world and the One Piece world, and see if we can start chipping away at the truth. You know what I'm saying? Just chipping away at it. All right, let's get started with no further ado. You get me? All right, let's go.
Enjoy. Hello and welcome to One Piece 101, the series that breaks down everyone and everything in the One Piece world, and today that statement is being taken on a rather grand scale because we are going to be tackling the massive task of breaking down the literal world of One Piece. And this is far from an easy thing to delve into because one of the greatest features of One Piece is its overwhelming mystery and the kind of endlessly expanding landscape before our eyes. However, after 2 decades of the series, we do have a very functioning idea.
Just want to say, big legend. Demon. Bad boy. Wasteman. Let's see what you're really on. Wasteman. Bigger Wasteman. I like this guy. I hate this guy.
Idea of how this world is structured, and first and foremost I will begin with the fact that One Piece is indeed set on a planet that is overwhelmingly dominated by water, much more so than our home of Earth, or at least I'm assuming that's where most people are watching this video from. If not, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, for the sake of ease of explanation, we are now going to invoke Flat Earth theory and smush this planet in order to begin building it. So the overwhelming majority of the series takes place within one particular stretch of water known as the Grand Line, which circumnavigates the globe. So I suppose just imagine a planet wearing a belt or something. This area of the world is extraordinarily volatile, dangerous, and highly unpredictable in terms of weather, thus providing a fantastic location for an exciting pirate-based manga. And at the same time, the Grand Line is populated with potentially hundreds of islands of varying shapes and sizes, some of which could be the area of a small deserted island.
That's quite interesting as well because we have a Grand Line. Let me flip it over to this map that I have here of the world. We basically have a Grand Line, which is volatile and quite dangerous to live in, which is, I guess, can you see these two sections just above the red line and just below? I'd call this our Grand Line. This is really where all the madnesses on Earth happen, really and truly. When we're talking about like earthquakes, hurricanes, huge crazy storms, it's really all right through the middle. This is our Grand Line, which is quite interesting. I'm sure Oda done that. Like, I'm sure it was a direct reference to that.
whilst others can be the scale of gigantic countries. But in keeping with the fickle weather of the Grand Line, the climate of these islands can vary rapidly, even for relatively neighbouring islands. And these climates can be broadly classified into 4 types, being summer, autumn, winter, and spring, with some of your classic examples including Alabasta as a summer nation, Drum Island as a winter wonderland, and Dressrosa as your spring paradise. However, autumn islands tend to be exceedingly rare in this series, so much so that we haven't actually labelled anything as an official autumn island as of yet, although it is fairly widely speculated that Wano would be an autumn island, given that its heartland is permanently draped in falling sakura leaves.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't call it an autumn land, but I guess if you're talking about sakura leaves, then it's true. It always does have sakura leaves, but it also has some like proper arid landscapes as well. So I don't know, but yeah, whatever. It's not really that important.
It does bring up the first of many tricky exceptions to the climate classification though, because it happens to be an island that boasts multiple extreme climates, and if you were to take one giant step out of the capital and venture into say Ringo, then you would find yourself in the depths of a winter island. And then there are also places like Punk Hazard which have had their climates artificially created via a serious battle between Logia Devil Fruit users, as well as currently unexplained aberrations like Raijin Island, which is being perpetually struck by lightning. So there is no really solid classification system at play in this world, and each island will still present its own unique challenges. However, the Grand Line obviously does not exist in isolation, and in order for this stretch of water to be differentiated from the rest of the world, it is deliciously sandwiched on both sides by 2 thinner stretches of water known as the calm belts. And obviously these lengths of water also circumnavigate the globe, but as opposed to the Grand Line, the weather in this section is, as the name would imply, perfectly calm. Beyond calm actually, I'd say non-existent really, because somehow in these sectors of the world there are no winds or sea currents, and everything is pretty perfectly still, making it of course incredibly difficult to sail across and actually access the Grand Line, or leave the Grand Line should one so desire. That's far from the most major difficulty of the Calm Belt though, because it is also the designated breeding area for sea kings, which are the absurdly massive creatures that can be found all over the planet. However, they are highly concentrated in the Calm Belt, meaning that should you sail into it, your chances of being destroyed or eaten by one are extraordinarily high. That is of course unless you are an absolute boss, of which this series does have a fair
This is a big boss.
few, one of which I'd like to point out being Silver's Ray Lee, the first mate of the former Pirate King, who is able to casually swim across the Calm Belt without any fear of sea kings whatsoever. Also, in more modern times, the Marines have developed a method by which to cross the Calm Belt, which involves lining the bottom of their vessels with sea stone, which I suppose apparently repels the sea kings as if they were Zubats in a rock tunnel. In actuality, though, the sea stone just masks the appearance of the ships and renders them, for all intents and purposes, invisible to the senses of sea kings. Now, we have one more pretty big
Bit of trivia there. Didn't know that. I don't know where you found out that, where you got that information from, but that's pretty cool.
piece to place here, because while the world of One Piece is predominantly composed of islands, it does have one crowning continent which goes smack bang here, known as the Red Line. And it is a particularly long continent by anyone's standards, and just as with the Grand Line and the Calm Belt, it also circumnavigates the globe just along a different axis. And I suppose you could say that the Red Line functions as something of a gigantic wall, because it extends 10,000 meters below sea level right down to the sea floor, and while its exact height is still unknown, it is certainly tall enough to be considered impassable. Which isn't to say it's impossible to do so, because the German Kingdom, for example, have developed a technologically savvy way of climbing the Red Line with their ships, and we have also had at least one example of an individual who has painstakingly climbed up the Red Line, being Fisher Tiger. And he
That's actually quite funny, because yeah, the German thing reminded me of something, because like, I don't know, a lot of people would probably see something like this and see me entertaining some sort of idea of some ice wall and think that it's ridiculous, innit? And that, like, who would do something like that? That's just dumb. But like, in the One Piece world, the majority of people have no idea what's going on. Some of the people don't even believe that some of the things that happen that we know is fact in the show. So a lot of the people in the world, in the One Piece world, don't even know that any of this stuff is happening. Like, for example, Germa. Germa is like a comic book strip. Remember when Sanji turns into Black Stealth and Drake is like, yo, that's the guy. Even Law is like, yo, ain't that Black Stealth? We saw him in the comics. Like, they didn't even know that this guy was real. You know what I mean? They just thought he was some superhero from a comic strip. And I feel like that's the case. I feel like that could very well be the case here. You know what I'm saying? Even with this guy, the guy he was just speaking about, this guy here. This guy here. He climbed the Red Line. There's a guy called Admiral Byrd who said he flew over the ice wall. if you say that to someone, they're going to laugh at you. But Admiral Byrd is the most respected explorer in American history, and he said that that happened. But you ask anybody, they'll call you an idiot. They won't even know who Admiral Byrd is. So, yeah, I think it's quite interesting to note.
Example of an individual who has painstakingly climbed up the Red Line, being Fisher Tiger, and he did so in order to get to the one known settlement on this tall continent, being the Holy Land of Marijois, which is where the world nobles reside and rule over the riff-raff masses from afar.
Interesting, because look, when Byrd flew over the ice wall, he said he found a civilization there of guys that were way more advanced. So, like I said, man, there's parallels here, and it's worth a deep dive, and that's what we're doing. You get me? That's what we're doing. Let's have a bit of fun with it. We don't. Not everything has to be serious. Oh my god, this is definitely true. We don't know if it's true. We're finding out, but it's interesting stuff. You know what I mean? Like I think it's quite fun to move away from pure fiction, which is these animes, and linking it to real life, and then finding out like, if even one piece of this isn't fiction, no pun intended, if even one piece of this isn't fiction, I think that would be very bloody cool, mate.
But the existence of the Red Line also has the effect of creating 4 more distinct bodies of water in the world, which are known as the 4 blues, having been divided into North, South, East and West blue respectively, and these probably represent what we would consider average chunks of water that operate very much akin to our real world. There is nothing particularly special or volatile about them, except I suppose you may encounter a Sea King on the odd occasion, but otherwise these blues are all quite peaceful and reasonable areas of the planet. The one that we are by far the most familiar with in the series being East Blue, which is where we commenced our journey with one Monkey D. Luffy in the Goa Kingdom specifically, and it is also the home of iconic locations such as Shellstown, where we found Zoro, Syrup Village, where we recruited Usopp, the floating restaurant of Baratier, where we found our chef guy, Nami's home of Kokoyashi Village, as well as Log Town, where Goldie Roger was executed, and many, many more. As for the other blues, we know very little about them at this late stage, other than some scattered kingdoms and random fun facts about who was originally from where. Like for example, Nolan and the Luvneal Kingdom were located in North Blue, whilst Port Gas Ace was born in South Blue, and O'Hara, Robin's home island, was located in West Blue.
Alright, O'Hara. I love O'Hara. I can't wait to find out more about O'Hara in the show. O'Hara, I guess, if we're gonna find a parallel to real world, O'Hara would be where is it? The Library of Alexandria? Is it the Library of Alexandria? Hold on, let me confirm that. Let me just confirm that. The Library of Alexandria was a major ancient intellectual center founded in the 3rd century BCE in Alexandria, Egypt, under the Ptolemaic dynasty, intended to collect all the world's knowledge. O'Hara was doing the same. Events like Julius Caesar's fire and later conflicts through the precise timeline caused debate. Attracted scholars at Euclid, its destruction was gradual, likely through multiple events. But why was it destroyed? You know what I mean? Why was O'Hara destroyed?
To it being completely and utterly destroyed, that is. So they certainly contain great importance to the world and the series at
Queen.
large. However, what tends to happen is that prominent figures migrate from these blues and make names for themselves within the Grand Line. That's problematic though, because with the map as it is now, there is no way to access the Grand Line, or any of the other 4 blues actually. For example, if I was to migrate from East Blue, I would either be met with the Calm Belt or the Red Line on all fronts, making any form of progress impossible. Before we get to how to overcome this problem though, it's actually very important to completely reshape this map for a second. Now previously I stated that the Red Line also circumnavigates the globe, which is accurate and wonderful. However, it makes the map that we are viewing incredibly inaccurate. To account for the fact that the One Piece world is a globe, this is a bit trippy, but the flattened map ends up looking a little something like this. Which, just to avoid any potential confusion, because I know it will come up, this does not mean that there are 2 red lines. It is still one continent, and when scrunched up into a ball, this map will become a flawlessly connected globe. Great! With that out of the way, it's now time to point out that the Grand Line is not in fact a singular stretch of water, and due to the Red Line, it is separated divided into two distinct areas, one of which is referred to as Paradise, whilst the other is labelled as the New World.
Okay, that just made sense to me. It wasn't making much sense to me before,
Two
but
distinct areas, one of which
this right now just made sense to me. So basically, this basically splits this ball in half. This is one side of the ball, and then Paradise is the other side of the ball.
which is referred to as Paradise, whilst the other is labelled as the New World. And the reasoning for these names is that, despite how incredibly deadly and unpredictable the Grand Line is in general, the first segment is absolutely nothing compared to that of the second, hence it being known as Paradise by all those who have experienced the truly apocalyptic conditions of the New World. And the New World is also very notable.
Bro, that is so funny because if the Straw Hats actually went back to Paradise right now, it would genuinely be Paradise. It would be not like, I remember they were going through it when before they get to Sabadi and they you know saying go to the Fishman Island and go into the New World. Before that, they was going through it. They was finding guys that they couldn't handle. Do you remember flipping Usopp's village, bro? The guy with the claws and his two friends, the fat guy and the girl. But imagine them now. They'd pass out. I think Chopper Haki would make them pass out. Like it would literally be Paradise for them.
The only area of this planet that is not currently under the direct rule of the world government. Instead, it acts as more or less a lawless territory, primarily under the command of the four emperors, who are known as the most influential pirates in this world. But back to how we actually access any of these locations, this is where we introduce the concept of Reverse Mountain, which is a super tall point of the Red Line, in which all four blues meet, and from which they may enter the Grand Line through the various scattered paths shown here. However,
Interesting. I'm gonna load up a map real quick. All right, map loaded. I'll bring it in a sec.
once entering the mountain, you have but one choice, which is to be ejected into the Paradise section of the Grand Line. At which point we encounter another problem, because even if you make your way around to the end point of Paradise, you encounter the Red Line again, blocking your path into the New World. And unfortunately, getting into the New World is nowhere near as easy as Reverse Mountain, which actually wasn't very easy to begin with, but you basically have two options. You either need to somehow get over the Red Line, or you need to go under it, because there is a segment of passage.
Sounds like something I've heard of. Now, well, there you go.
Available, a sort of tunnel through the continent, if you will, which will take one past Fishman Island. But this is important actually, because now we need to discuss the One Piece world through a different lens, which is height and depth. Up until now, we've mostly been considering things from sea level, which in this case is referred to as the Blue Sea. But the world of One Piece extends far below and far above this concept. Firstly, making our way down, once we reach 7,000 meters below sea level, we hit an area known as the Underworld of the Sea, which is a position so deep that no light from the surface can penetrate.
So this is where you see all those images of like the scary fish and all that stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? The fish with the light bulbs on their heads and all that. I guess that would be like the real world equivalent of this.
So it's very spooky, dark, and full of all sorts of terrifying sea life. But then we can go even further down, and at 10,000 meters we hit the sea floor, which is actually known to possess quite an array of civilized life, including the aforementioned Fishman Island.
Okay. All right. So this is where we can now gather another parallel. We can find another parallel here, because now, obviously, what I'm about to say is rumor. Or is it rumor? It's not exactly rumor. I mean, I think scientists have confirmed it. In fact, let me see if I can get that up. Okay, here we are. Scientists have found a massive reservoir of water located deep below the Earth's crust, trapped within the mineral ringwoodite. This hidden ocean, in quotation marks, is not liquid, but is held within the mineral's crystal structure, similar to a sponge. The discovery made through that's even more weird. The discovery made through the analysis of seismic waves from earthquakes suggests deeper global water cycle that may help explain the origin of Earth's surface oceans. The water is found in the Earth's mantle, roughly 400 to 700 kilometers below the surface. 400 miles, 250 to 400 miles. The water is trapped within the crystal structure of a mineral called ringwoodite. Ringwoodite forms under the high pressure and high temperature conditions of the deep mantle. How would they even know this? Like, I don't even understand how they could even know this. But yeah, there's a slight parallel there. A slight parallel of an ocean world that we don't know about, that we don't really have access to, which is only certain people that have access to it. I think the only reason they even get there is because Rayleigh coats their ship and they're able to get down there. So yeah, this is like, again, this is stuff that the regular person in the One Piece world will think is a myth, you know what I mean? But for us, I guess it's not a myth because scientists have kind of found it that it's true.
And in an incredible natural phenomenon, light does indeed reach this area of the world via the roots of the sunlight tree Eve, which allows everyone and everything to prosper. But then we can also go in the opposite direction as well and make our way up, and once we've reached 7,000 meters above sea level, we hit the White Sea, which is heavily populated by island clouds, which are allegedly created by a particular element that composes sea stone called pyrobloin.
As above, so below. This is a religious take that I think it's a religious take. Or some people have interpreted this from religious texts that above us is the firmament. Or is it the firmament that divides us from the ocean above us? I guess this would be that ocean, the White Sea that they're talking about here. I think this is Skypiea, isn't it? I think it is.
Which is a fictional element ejected into the air by volcanic eruptions, and then it binds with water vapor to create clouds of various levels of solidity. Some of them could be sturdy enough to walk on, for example, whilst others could mimic the properties of water and allow vessels to sail upon them. However, most of the more solid clouds are found once we reach the height of 10,000 meters, which is known as the White Sea, which is another layer of sea clouds that includes prominent sky islands like Skypiea, for example, as well as half of Jaya Island, which was sent up there by the Knock-Up Stream. Which, speaking of, the Knock-Up Stream is thus far the only way that we have been shown capable.
Listen, man, W. Oda, man, the Knock-Up Stream. What a sick concept. What a sick concept. W. Oda, once again, W. Oda.
White Sea levels, which is an absurdly dangerous practice and not at all recommended, because apparently there are other much safer ways of traveling to this area, although none of them have been revealed to us at the time of this recording. But
yeah, there must be. Now, I feel like I can bring the map that I was talking about before. So, for example, not for example. So, I've mentioned Admiral Byrd, and I've also mentioned this underwater sea. You know what I'm saying? This underwater, this sea beneath the Earth's crust. These are places. That place you can't. No one's gonna get there. You know, you can't get there, obviously. And the way Admiral Byrd done it, which was to fly over the ice wall. We're not allowed to do that. You know, Admiral Byrd was for starters, he was a Mason, I think 33rd degree, and he had the green light from government. You know, government let him do that. He was basically an admiral. He was literally an admiral, bro. He was Admiral Byrd, bro. He was literally an admiral. Sorry, let me just fix my cam. He was literally an admiral. You know what I'm saying? So he had the green light to fly over there. We're not allowed to do that. I've heard about a guy who done it, who worked for Gov, and he had access to some serious planes that he knew how to turn off. Basically, he knew how to make them invisible so they wouldn't pop up in radars. And he jumped in the plane, he flew over, he live streamed it. I think he live streamed it on the dark web. I've actually seen the video. It was actually floating around on the ClearNet for a while. I never found it again. The video is kind of crazy. The video is actually very scary when you watch it. It ends abruptly, and the way it ends is kind of mad. He's literally flying. It's daylight. Suddenly, everything goes black, and there's like this blue fluorescent glow around things, and you can like kind of make out trees and things like that. And then you hear this guy panicking, and you hear crazy noises, and the live stream cuts off, and you never hear from him again. And this was a real guy who works for government. People know him. I think his name was John Hamilton. If I'm getting that wrong, please write in the comments. And if you've seen that video, write in the comments as well, or DM me. You know, this information is not the least sensitive. Let's just put it that way.
But with that, we have the very basics of the One Piece world, and I would like to...
But sorry, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so those are the ways that we've heard about. So one guy who actually went over it was a Mason, he was an admiral, he was allowed to. The other way, underneath the water, we don't even know what the hell is going on there, so we can't even begin to start planning something like that. But then you have these then you have these passages that are the safe passages. Well, there are some safe passages. Now we're gonna start making it a bit mad, isn't it? We're gonna start being a bit crazy. If we go over here to this map, this is the Flat Earth's Hidden Lands map. I love this map. There's actually a Japanese map that was made about 200 years ago that is very similar to this. I think they probably got the concept from that. They probably like got the idea for this map from that map there. It was, yeah, a Japanese map, if I'm not mistaken, about from 200, 300 years ago, where they depict a world just like this one. And in fact, in the Japanese one, it's even bigger than this. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so this is the map I'm talking about. This is a Japanese map that was found in a Japanese temple. Let's see where it said, found in 1907. People saying it would be 1,000, unsubstantial claims were made that the map would be 1,000 years old. And in this map, like you see, it's huge. There's lands here that are not really found on that. Yeah, the lands are different. Yeah, I don't know if this one was inspired by this one or not, but yeah, apparently 1,000 years old. But in this map, we see these bits here, which are for example, you have this gate, you have this passage over here as well, you have this passage, and I think there's another map that's more detailed than this one that has other passages as well. And even on the outside of this ring, which would be the ice wall, you have this map, you have this gate, these gates over here, and these gates over here, and these look a bit less difficult to access. But I guess once you're over here, like, you know what I'm saying, it's no man's land, really and truly. It's the Wild West at that point. Like, who's really going to stop you? So the Summer Gate, I've seen images of this before, man. But yeah, all right. So I guess these would be the easier parts to get through, like the guy mentions in the video. But anyway, let's carry on the video.
To emphasize that this is not an exhaustive examination. Every new arc in the series tends to present us with new and conflicting information regarding the composition of this realm. And even with everything we do know, there is still an incredible amount of remaining mysteries, the most prominent of which being where is the hidden island of Laugh Tale, the discovery of which theoretically leads someone to the One Piece and putting them on the path of becoming the next Pirate King.
Okay. Where is Laugh Tale? That is where the One Piece would be, and that's what we need to find. You know what I'm saying? That's what we need to find.
And then there's also the entire realm of outer space, which I have decided not to touch on in this video. The rest is assured.
What? Outer space? Outer space? Since when? There's an outer space aspect of One Piece. I didn't know that. Is that what this video is? It's from Grand Line Review as well. Episode 2, perhaps. But alright, I'm not even going to watch no more of that video. I think this is a good starting point. We found quite a few interesting parallels between the One Piece world and our real world. And like I said, there's other animes that will have the same things. You know, I'm getting through Attack on Titan right now, and I'm seeing a lot of parallels in that. So what a show, by the way. Oh my lord. Mikasa. Tsukasa. Mikasa, Tsukasa. Mikasa. You know what I'm saying? Any day of the week. But yeah, like I said, I think we found some good parallels in this roundup of the One Piece world. And yeah, bro, let's just chip away at it. You know, like I said, man, this isn't super serious. I would love it to be real. Because I'll be honest, like, I am bored of this world, man. This world is like, it's really boring. All you do, you wake up, go work, get some money, buy a house. That can't be it. Like, you know, like how Truman said, that can't be it. It can't be it. Like, that can't be all there is. And I'm not even saying that we need to do more than just raise a family and look after our family. Like, that's not even what I'm saying. Like, I think that's heaven, really and truly. To be able to just have a family and raise them and come back home and spend time with your children, with your wife, with your family like that. I can't imagine really a better life than that. But when you have this itch at the back of your head, yeah, that we're not being told everything that's really going on, it's like, I just can't shake it. I just can't shake the urge to want to find out what it is. And you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it might even all be a waste of time on my part, because it might just none of it might be true. It's just probably people like me who want more than there already is. And it comes to it, they get to the end and they realize, oh, there really isn't much more. But I would like to have a look for myself. You know what I mean? I would like to have a look for myself. So join me. You get me? Join me. Join the crew. Follow, subscribe, like, comment. Tell me what you know about this sort of stuff. Like, point me to a video that I should watch. I actually think I'm going to go with Grand Line's next video, The One Piece World is Bigger Than We Thought, because I think he's going to talk about outer space and all that stuff. He's got a planet, he's got an image of Saturn on there. So, and that's quite interesting. And I think that's just interesting anyway, because I didn't know about that. And yeah, man, just like, you know what I'm saying? Join the crew. You get me? We need a musician, bruv. You get me? We need a swordsman. We need a cook. You get me? We need a navigator, that's for sure. We need someone that knows the oceans. I need someone who knows what's going on the oceans to give me some pointers, bruv. Because I have no idea what's going on in the oceans. So yeah, bruv, follow me on this journey. It's gonna be jokes. It's gonna be fun. It might in the end turn out to be nothing, but like they said, maybe the One Piece is just the friends you find on the journey. Maybe that is all that it is. And if that is all that it is, then so be it. But let's find out for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Next episode might be non-canon, might be canon. It depends. I'll see. But yeah, man. Yo ho ho ho. You know what I'm saying? Love, guys.